Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Bush's Mama, and I am joined tonight, now that I can talk, by my wonderful co-host Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone. And we are in the middle of our Disney Cruise Line series. We are on episode 3, and this episode will bring you kids clubs and activities, and I'm excited to hop in. How are you doing today, Kate?
I'm doing really good. It's kind of a holiday weekend for us here, and so we're working on getting our garden put in and all those kinds of things,
Fun.
and heading towards the end of the school year as, busy time for all parents everywhere.
Yes, I feel that very deeply as well.
Yes.
Well, hopefully this will be a nice escape from all of our mom duties at the moment, even just for a little while.
We'll mentally go on a Disney cruise
Yes.
for just a little while.
Yes. And it was hard to come back after last episode. We went on that nice whirlwind Disney 101 cruise that was so wonderful. And then we tried to come back for our Ask the Moms, and it was like, oh, right, we need to come back to land now.
I know. You learned about embarkation and debarkation and muster stations.
It was great.
There's a lot of vocabulary in the last episode. But
yes.
Tonight, we are going to talk about shore excursions, board excursions. We're going to talk about onboard activities. We're going to talk about kids clubs. So basically, the things that you do on a Disney cruise, outside of things like we've already talked about dining and stuff like that. So more like the activities that you're going to do. That's what this episode is all about. So looks like we're going to start with shore excursions, which is a really fun place to talk about. So do you want to start with that, Jackie?
Yeah, I've got kind of information overload because there's just so many options. So I tried my best to pare it down so that we're not literally just sitting here listing things off for you guys and kind of giving you just the basic gist of where you can go and what kind of those look like. So let's just overall talk about kind of different information for those. So the excursions are coordinated with your ship's arrival and departure. So all of the timing and everything, if you're booking directly through the cruise line, is all coordinated with that. So the nice thing about that is if an excursion runs late or things have to change, Disney takes care of you. So that is one of the biggest perks of going on a Disney cruise line rather than cruising with someone else. Disney is always going to take care of you when it comes to those types of things. So they can provide service back to the ship or arrange travel to the next port if needed.
Yeah, so with the shore excursions, if a port is missed, Disney will refund you any missed excursions. Also, if you are waiting, this happened to us on our cruise. If a excursion is delayed for some reason, basically they have you go to a specific place on the ship, and then you get a little sticker to wear that's for your port adventure. They sign you in, and then you have to wait at a table, and then they kind of tell you when to go with your tour guide or whatever off the boat. We had one where it was delayed so much because of port transportation from the boat into the city that it was almost 45 minutes to an hour, and it was delaying everything so much that it was dicey whether or not we were going to get back in time. And so they said hey, well, you can kind of, we'll do a shortened tour, or you can decide what you want to do, or we can just refund it for you. And so we took the refund option, decided to just go in town on by ourselves. Mm-hmm. So sometimes there are circumstances that way where it doesn't work out, but I think that's the exception and not the norm, because most of the time they work out pretty well.
Right. And you can kind of anticipate if you think there's going to be weather, or if you've heard through announcements or notifications or whatever that there's going to be some weather, you may know that may happen. Those types of instances, like Kate was mentioning, when it comes to when you're literally trying to get off the ship, doesn't happen quite as often. So a couple different kind of categories, so to speak, of excursions. And all of this information is directly from the Disney Cruise Line website. So if you're looking for it, that is where the majority of this came from. They do offer kind of 3 different categories of special excursions that are not the norm. And those are private excursions, accessible excursions, and culinary adventures. So I'm going to talk just briefly about each of those before we jump into kind of your standard offerings. So they do offer a number of private excursions, and those can be found kind of interspersed throughout some of the ones that we're going to mention later. So a lot of the standard excursions that we mentioned, they do also have a private option where you can have a private vehicle, private boats if you do for swimming, fishing, and snorkeling, or private tours. If you would rather book that, obviously that is going to be more expensive, more to budget for, but that is an option for a lot of the things that they do offer. The other thing that I thought was really neat as I was kind of doing some of this research, since I have not been on a Disney cruise, is these accessible excursion options. So the Disney website literally says, this is a quote, it says it's perfect for seniors and those with limited mobility. So Disney now offers these at various ports, and these feature accessible vehicles, minimal or no stairs, and easy to navigate pathways. So it's a really nice option. Yeah, if you are traveling with someone that needs that and you're really hesitant about booking it, the excursions that offer that accessibility will literally say it in the title when you go to book it. So it's really easy to find when you're looking. And I'll talk briefly in a little bit about like kind of how to search and how to filter, because there are just thousands on some of these lists, and it's a lot.
Overwhelming. Right.
So for the accessible ones, they are currently available at the following ports: Alaska, Bahamas, the Caribbean, which would be the St. Thomas, Antigua, and Puerto Rico. In the Mediterranean, Italy, Greece, and France, the Mexican Riviera, and Northern European, including St. Petersburg and Estonia. So those are the ones that currently have accessible excursions if you're going to one of those places.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the culinary adventures, which is one of my favorite things to do. So those are cooking classes, Epicurean adventures, and wine and dessert experiences. So if it's food related, drink related. There's availability in the following places: Europe, so Tuscany, Ireland, Finland, Mexico, Cabo San Lucas and Cozumel, the Caribbean in St. Kitts, Canada in Prince Edward Island, Charlottetown, and St. John, the Bahamas in Nassau, and Alaska in Ketchikan. So lots of places where you can have some unique culinary adventures.
Yeah, and they do have some other kind of like food tours and wine tours and things like that are not considered that culinary one. But those culinary experiences, you are like in the kitchen learning how to make the dishes and those types of things. So it's just like kind of a step further. But you'll hear in a little bit, we do talk about kind of some of the ones that have like wine tours and things like that in some of these areas as well.
Yeah, I know that there's a few of them. At least I remember from our Alaskan one where you could like, go sample king crab, or you could, they serve s'mores around the fire. Like there's options that like include food but aren't like focused on food. So differences there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So let's talk about booking. How and when to book your shore excursions. So you heard us talk a little bit about kind of booking windows for cruises on previous episodes, and it kind of feels very similar in the way that your Castaway Club membership level kind of determines when you're able to book. So the more cruises that you have been on, the earlier you get to book your excursions on top of everything else, basically, that you get to do for these cruises.
Which is why if you see them like sold out and you just book, you went on the day, on the hour to book and they're already gone, that would be why. And it does happen with the more popular ones, they do sell out. So be careful. I would say when you're planning picking out which shore excursions you want to go on, have like a plan B and C just in case, so that you have something you can book. And if your first choice isn't available.
Yeah, that's a really smart idea. So obviously it is better to book as soon as your window opens based on what we were just talking about. So first time guests will be able to book 75 days prior to your sail date. If you are Silver Castaway Club member, it will be 90 days prior to sail date. Gold is 105 days prior to sail date. And then concierge guests, so if you're staying concierge level with your stateroom, and Platinum Club members is 120 days prior to sail date. And then after departure, you can also check in on any reservations that you weren't able to get, or any last minute reservations at the Port Adventures desk located on deck 5. And you heard us mention that last episode when we talked about things you can do when you board the boat before your room is ready. That would be one of them.
Right. So when it comes to private booking, when your cruise is paid in full and you're in the booking window, you can sign into your Disney account and submit a request form for the private booking ones for that category. An agent will contact you within 7 days of submission, and requests are processed in the order they are received.
Yes, because obviously there's a lot less of those available just based on wherever you're going and what tour it is and the time frame and all of that type of thing. So those are, I imagine they're probably pretty hard to get unless you're someone who is at those like platinum level.
Right. You first come, first serve. And they're also more expensive though. So those might be less people getting them depending on what it is. So
Right.
Yeah.
So just keep those things in mind. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I hadn't read that for the other cases, but for those private bookings, your cruise has to be paid in full before you're able to book those.
Yeah, because they're probably pretty spendy. I have never done them. So I also wanted to include a few notes on when not to book shore excursions, because I know this is something that people talk about a lot. So if you're somebody who prefers some more spontaneous, unplanned touring, like you just kind of like to go with the flow and go explore and walk around and see things, some of these tours will allow you time, like they'll give you like 30 minutes or 45 minutes to walk around the town, and then you have to meet back up. But if you really would prefer more leisurely touring and not somebody kind of leading you everywhere and going with a group everywhere, then don't book a shore excursion, because it'll be really frustrating for you.
Yeah.
If you feel really, don't book a shore excursion if you feel really confident booking on your own some individual ones that are, available. I'd be really cautious about the ones that are just right there when you get off the boat. There's a lot of like people that sometimes try to sell them at the docks and things like that. And some of them are legit and some of them might not be. So just be really careful about that if you're new to cruising, if you're new to the area, just so you don't end up somewhere you shouldn't be or being ripped off by paying way too much. So, but if you do feel confident booking on your own and you know the area, or you've been there before, or you know what you're doing, or you know where you want to go, then by all means, don't book a shore excursion. Another thing is if you're not that interested in the port and like where you're going, there's no rule that says you have to get off the ship.
Right.
So don't feel guilted into being like, oh, well, we're at this port and we've never been here before, we should go see it. Like if you have zero interest in going to that particular country or port, just don't get off the ship. Just enjoy the ship, enjoy the quiet of the ship. There's always people that stay behind that just don't go. So also, the Disney Cruise Line excursions can be more expensive because it's Disney branded, right? They partner with people that are in these particular ports. So it's not Disney necessarily giving you the tour, but it's their partner on shore. But you do pay a premium because it's with that Disney connection, and also for the convenience of getting to meet on the boat and not having to go find them on your own. So just know that you're just going to pay a little bit more because of that convenience. So
yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. So let's talk about how you actually go forward and book these. We've talked about when to book and maybe when not to book, but let's talk about how to book. And I'm just going to kind of run through this. So save this, come back later when you're ready to actually book your cruise and refresh your memory on how to do this. But basically, it's going to be all through your account through Disney Cruise Line. So you're going to log into your reservations, go to My Plans, and from there you'll see your itinerary plan. And you'll choose the day first and then click Add Activities from there. And from there, the menu will appear offering various things that you can do. You're going to select Port Adventures and review the list of available options from there. And then you book it, select the one you want and book it, and then go back to review to the other port adventures available on that day and follow the same steps, so on and so forth. I will mention with this, though, you can go ahead and kind of peruse through them on the website before you actually go to book, but do keep in mind that itineraries change a lot and everything that you see on the website may not actually be available on your particular itinerary. Right. So do keep that in mind. So when you're doing your perusing, like Kate mentioned earlier, make a list of maybe 5 to 10 that you see on there, and then that'll help narrow down whenever you go to actually see what is available for your itinerary.
Yeah, because we picked ours ahead of time, and then when we went to book it, like 3 of them weren't available, either because they were sold out or because they just weren't offering it at the time we were cruising, because it was a little bit more in the off season. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely a good plan to have A, B, and C plans for that. Yes. I do have a question here. So you don't have to get off the ship at every port, and nope. There's no requirement to get off the ship until the end of your cruise, when you must get off the ship at debarkation day. Then they frown on you trying to stay on then. But no, there's no requirement to get off the ship at any given time during your cruise. You can stay on the entire time if you prefer not to go. And honestly, you're paying for a lot and you get free food there. So, you're welcome to stay on the boat and enjoy all the things.
And your budget maybe only can afford one shore excursion at one of the ports that you stay at. And then you just stay on the boat the rest of the time. Or maybe none if you're like, nope, we're spending our money on the boat. We're staying on the boat. lots of people cruise lots of different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just do what you want. It's your vacation.
Like our last day, our last port in Norway, when we had all those problems and our shore excursion got canceled, I stayed on the boat with my girls because it was so frustrating. The transportation was a nightmare to try to get to town. But my husband and my mother-in-law, they took a bus into town and they just walked around and shopped and had some lunch, and they had a great time. And then they just made sure they got back in time. That's always the key. Yes. Is make sure you do not miss your boat. Do not become one of those port runners. Don't do the pier
right,
runner
because if you're on a tour, you're pretty much, as long as you stay with your tour, you're guaranteed to get back to the boat when you're supposed to, because that's part of the tour that you booked. So
right,
if you go off on your own, make sure you're paying attention to that clock.
Right, and come back earlier than you think you need to. Just be safe. That's my thing.
So let's talk about if you have to cancel an excursion that you have booked, what that process kind of is. And basically, those reservations need to be canceled at least 3 days prior to your cruise departure date, not to the day you're supposed to go on the excursion, to your cruise departure date. Otherwise, they will be considered final and non-refundable. So keep that in mind. And please note that some port adventures are non-cancelable and non-refundable when you even book them. I know. I was like, oh. And it will state that like in the description of the excursion that you go to book, that it is completely non-refundable if you go to book it. So just pay attention to those things. But again, like we mentioned earlier, if your boat ends up having to miss a port because of weather or whatever, Disney will take care of you then if you've booked through them.
Right.
So,
and also trip insurance. We've talked about that in a previous episode, how valuable trip insurance is, especially when it comes to cruises, because they're very expensive and things happen. So let's talk a little bit about age restrictions. So there's different, depending on the activity, they'll put kind of what ages are available for each activity. So there's 10 and up, 12 and up, 18 and up, or all ages. There's different categories for that. And the prices change with the age ranges, similar to Disney tickets if you're used to going to the parks, same kind of thing. Also take into account your needs as a family, especially like the terrain, if you're going to take a stroller, or, how much walking is involved, especially with kiddos, and how long like duration of it is for littles. Usually the ones that are open to their ages, for all ages, they usually have accommodations for kids. It's usually tolerable for them for a lot of things, but you know your kids more than anybody else. And so kind of just pay attention to what you think might be best for your family. And because you don't want to be stuck out on a shore excursion with really no way to get back. And you just have to kind of like do this 5-hour thing and your kids are over it. Maybe I would recommend, if you have littles, doing shorter ones.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. So you still get a little taste of whatever the port is, but you also can be back if they need a nap, or they need to go to the kids club and you need a break, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
On the other end of that, this was just something that I hadn't considered, and I thought it was interesting when I was looking at this. Some of the like wine tour ones that you come across in Europe are 18 and up, not 21 and up, which we would consider that drinking age in the US. So just keep that in mind if you are maybe perhaps traveling with very young adult children, that you just keep that in mind.
Yep. That's a good point. Shall we talk about where you can go, some of the different ports of call?
Yes. Okay. So when you are looking on the Disney Cruise Line website, they have it really well organized. But I highly suggest you use their sort features on that list, because it will pull up literally every excursion that is known to their system.
It's crazy. I'm like, I don't need all this information.
No. So definitely use those sort filters at the top. So, because you can sort that list by ports of call, experience type, activity level, like Kate was just mentioning, accessibility, and also price range, which is really nice. So they sort them kind of in like $50 to $100 price ranges depending on what you're looking at. So use those to your advantage to help you kind of make that list if you're looking ahead of time. And again, everything we mentioned here is possibly available some of the time. We don't know exactly what Disney is going to offer when.
It changes year per year too,
Yes,
what they
some
offer.
of these you will find are fairly standard as you look through. and others of them, they may not have been offered in a while, but they're still on the website and there's no way for us to know, unfortunately. So we're just gonna kind of give you a rundown of what could be available, just to kind of give
just
you
a sampling
idea
of the idea of what is kind of there. Yeah.
Yes. Kate, I'll start, and then do you want to just kind of hop back and forth so we can run down through this list of...
Do you want me to start since I've done Alaska before?
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. So Alaska is up first. There's 203 options currently, including ziplining, seaplane, Alaska Bears, Bigfoot Adventures, Alaska
that one was funny.
It's fun.
There's a Bigfoot tour.
I feel like we have that in the Pacific Northwest too. There's a lot of Bigfoot legends. Alaska Raptor Center. So that would be like birds, probably like raptor birds.
Yeah.
Not dinosaurs.
Not dinosaurs. No, unfortunately.
This is not Jurassic Park. Alaska Whales and Rainforest Trails, which I've done the whales one. That one was really fun. Jeep and canoe adventures, coastal rainforest, Segway experience, dog sleds, and glacier exploration, where you actually do either get a good view of the glacier and some of them actually go on top of them. So that's really fun. We did one also that I don't know if they still offer it, but there was one that was a train, and it was, I feel like it was in Juneau, but I'm not sure. Juneau at Ketchikan, but there was a train and you could go up in this like really beautiful train ride up into the mountains, and that one was 100% worth everything we paid for it, and perfect for my kids because it put them to sleep. So just saying. Yeah, so Alaska, lots and outdoor adventures obviously in Alaska.
Yes. Okay. These are kind of alphabetical, so forgive the fact that we're not going to jump to the Bahamas after talking about Alaska.
I need to warm back up.
I know. So in the Bahamas, there are approximately 95 options that you can do there, including harbor cruises, just generic city tours, sea lion encounters, stingray encounters, parasailing, kayaking, snorkeling, fly fishing. You kind of get the gist with those. So again, lots of outdoor water related activities that you can do there, but then also some walking, and there's a lot of like hop on, hop off city tours in a lot of these places too. So you'll see that a lot as well.
Yeah. Bermuda, 42 options in Bermuda, including scuba diving, glass bottom, boat and sightseeing cruises, aquariums and zoos, saltwater pools, haunted history tours, which sounds kind of fun.
I know. I saw that one. I was like, oh, I feel like that would be interesting.
But what's different than just your general, activities you usually see there. So.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are cruising to Canada, you will find 213 options in Canada. And some of these were really interesting. I kind of wrote down some really specific ones because I just thought they were interesting as I was scanning through these hundreds of options on the list, trying to figure out what to include. So they have a lot of the city tours and hop on, hop off city tours as well. National park carriage rides. They have lobster bakes. They have an Alexander Graham Bell tour and an Anne of Green Gables tour, which I was like, that's interesting.
That would be fun.
I know, some literary stuff there. But then some kayak tours, lighthouses, brewery tours, and puffin tours, which I was like, I want to do that one.
Now I want to go on all the cruises. That's the problem with this episode.
You're finding all of the things that you have not yet found yet.
Right? Oh my goodness.
Sorry, Elliot.
I know. Ugh, our budget. So next up is the Caribbean or Caribbean, depending on how you want to say it. A whopping 659 options, which is not surprising considering how many ships they have moving through that part of the world. But bicycle tours, horseback riding, jungle zip lines, snorkeling, submarine tours, Mayan ruins, which is pretty amazing. So lots and lots of options there for things to do.
That is like the shortest list I could do because I was like, this is overwhelming. I cannot scroll
Plus
through
really
600.
everything we've talked to you about, except for like the Alaska stuff.
Right. Exactly. Okay, let's talk about Castaway Cay, which was a question that we had earlier. There are 27 options whenever you stop there. Because it is kind of a smaller area. You've got to remember it is an island, so you're not looking at big cities and things like that. It's literally just Disney's private island. But they do offer bicycle tours, snorkeling, aqua trikes and water bikes, banana boat rides, fishing adventures, stingray adventures, paddle boats, and walking and kayak nature adventure tours as well.
I've heard the snorkeling is really fun because Disney has hidden like things under the water for you to find.
That's cool.
I think there was like a Prince Eric statue or something like that.
I feel like I've seen videos of that too.
Yeah. So it's not just like nature, which is great in its own for snorkeling, but also like Disney things, which is really fun.
Yes. Do you want to talk about the next one, which is the new Disney one?
Oh, yeah. Lookout Key. So there's 17 options there. The newest island destination on the Bahamian. Is that how we say that?
I guess so. Bahamian island.
Island of, I don't know how to say this. You gave me the hard one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Eleuthera?
Eleuthera. Yeah. That might be how you say that. Then, of course, there's bikes and kayaks, snorkeling, off-road buggies, and cave adventures. You can do a little spelunking under Disney. It's probably not one that's too dangerous, I'm guessing.
Probably not. I would highly doubt that. But yeah, that looked really interesting that they already had some of that information on the website. So exciting that there's now 2 private Disney locations that you can visit exclusively on your Disney cruise line.
So you can go to 2 private islands. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
very cool. Let's hop over to the Pacific side of things and look at Hawaii. In Hawaii, there are 67 options if you are cruising in the Hawaiian Islands. They have a battleship tour, which I thought sounded really cool, very historical. They talk about all the different ships and all that type of thing. Submarine adventure. They have like best of tours, and we will see this kind of as we go through, where it's like best of the city or best of the town or best of the area kind of thing. So kind of like the highlights tours, if so to speak. They have scenic shores and sea cliff tours, rainforest excursions, helicopter tours, horseback riding, jungle zip lines. They have a Pearl Harbor experience where you can go and kind of get that as your focus. Volcano tours, of course, and waterfall, cave, black sand cove tours, which I thought that one was like, oh, that's like a little bit of everything. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, the Pearl Harbor ones are really emotional and a little solemn. So be careful if you go to those ones, especially with kids. Prepare them for what they're going to see, because it's basically like visiting the tomb of all the stuff that happened. So just be warned with that one.
Yes.
It's a tough one to visit sometimes. So,
and I can imagine the battleship one that I mentioned as well probably touches on some of that as well. So just if you've got kiddos that are history buffs and they know all about that and that's their thing, that would be perfect for them. But if they don't, like Kate said, you may just want to warn them a little.
Yeah. And it's definitely like a place to be quiet, which might be harder for some kiddos. So, of course, let's pop over to the Mediterranean and Europe, which I'm excited about. I actually have so many things for this, but there's 1,864 options, and that's because it's like all of the Mediterranean. There's a couple different cruises that go in different areas on this, and so that's why it's so massive. And there's a lot to see in Europe. There's city and town tours. I just have a little photo of one that we did in a city in Belgium.
How pretty.
It was like a medieval town that we got to visit, which was really fun. And had a Belgian waffle, which was so good. There's lots of car tours, scenic route tours, castle tours, several a taste of tours in various cities, which makes sense for places like Italy and France and things like that. Yeah. Bike ride tours, alcohol tours, and so many other options that we're not going to list them all. I also have one from when we went. I do have a picture. We visited Tivoli Gardens, which I think would be especially relevant to anybody who is a Disney history person, because this is one of the places Walt Disney visited in Denmark when he was researching Disneyland and how to put it together. So there's a couple different packages for it, but we did kind of like an all-day one. I don't recommend the one that includes food. We had a huge problem with them not recognizing our vouchers for food, and it took a whole hour of our day to figure it out.
Oh no!
So I don't recommend that. But you will see it looks so much like Walt visited here in 1953, and you can see his influences for Disneyland. A lot of them did come from this park in particular. So highly recommend that one if you are headed to Denmark on any of your itineraries.
So cool! I remember you telling me when you once you got everything planned, you're like, we're gonna get to go, and you were so excited.
So happy. I know. I didn't even realize it when we booked it, that was one of the ports. Like, I was paying attention to what part of the world we were going to go to more so than like the individual ports. And then it was like, and they were We also had one that swapped out because we were going to go to Amsterdam, but they changed our port on us probably because they didn't get permission or like fees or whatever. Their thing expired for that port permission. And so instead of Amsterdam, we went to Belgium. And so it was cool to go to a new country because I'd already been to Amsterdam, but it was an interesting change to have. So be aware that your port in itself might change during your cruise. So
yes. And again, like we said, if you book directly through Disney, they'll help you and take care of you. But just keep that in mind with your travel insurance.
Yes, for sure. I'm just finding all of my pictures now. And so we went on like a canal tour of this town in Belgium, and it was really fun. Anyway, do you want to talk about the Mexican Riviera? Sorry.
As Kate goes down memory lane as she's looking through all of her photos over there. Yes, let's talk about if you are visiting the Mexican Riviera on your cruise. You have 135 options of different excursions for there. And a lot of these will sound very similar, but there's a couple unique ones here. They've got snorkeling and scuba diving. They have tequila making tours, which I was like, that makes sense when you're in that Mexico area. For sure. Whale watching. They do cooking lessons. So that is one that you can look into if you're looking for those actual culinary options. This is one of them that we mentioned earlier. They do have like an art walk and pottery workshop combo one that I thought was really cool.
They have like a lot of mosaic art and things like there. So that would be really interesting.
Yeah, so it was really cool because it talked about like that's like something you like a keepsake that you like get to, you made some pottery while you were there, which is cool. They do a dolphin swim. They have a wine country excursion, which that was one of the ones that I thought that I was like, oh, it only says 18 and up, right? Because you're in Mexico and they have different laws there. And then they have zipline tours as well for that one.
Off to New Zealand and Australia, there is 38 options here, including Aussie wildlife, because who doesn't want to see a kangaroo? Right. Wineries, Sydney Harbour Cruise, jet boating, kayaking, night ghost tours. So ghost tours are coming back. Yeah. Oyster tours, Sydney Opera House, tea and kangaroos. I just really want to do that tour.
I was doing my research and I read that I was sitting, typing and I like gasped about it. And my husband was sitting with me. He's like, what? And I was like, they have an excursion. And he was like, okay. And I was like, in Australia. He was like, oh, okay. It's like, don't you want to have, it was like morning or afternoon tea and kangaroos. And I was like,
yeah, who doesn't want to do that? That sounds great. Sign me up. They also have a wildlife bushwalk as well, which sounds less tempting to me only because I think spiders when I hear bushwalk. But tea and kangaroos, I'm all board.
It's probably a well-maintained bushwalk, if I had to guess. I don't think you're actually going like into the wildlife. I don't think that they would take tourists there. That's just my guess, though.
I just have a massive fear of spiders, so like anything. That's Australia. I'm like, no, I don't really. No, thanks. No, thanks. Right. But I maybe for tea and kangaroos. Maybe. See, maybe that's what gets me there.
Maybe you get some other. Maybe it's not just kangaroos. Maybe it's some additional wildlife that you get to see while you're there. Who knows?
Was it New Zealand has the kiwis, right?
I think so. Yeah,
but you're not allowed to photograph them like legally.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think my sister-in-law went there. She sent us a postcard and she's like, well, they wouldn't let me take pictures, so I had to get you this postcard. It's like against the law. I don't know. I haven't researched that at all, but that's what she told us.
Interesting. So. Okay, well, don't do that. Although I guess if you're on an excursion tour, they'll probably tell you whether or not you're allowed. So, that's fine. Anyway, shall we hop back over to the Pacific coast?
Yes.
Do you want to do this one since that's your coast?
Yeah. So 66 options, including Alcatraz and Sausalito. So Alcatraz is the prison that is off the island outside of San Francisco. City and shopping tours, helicopter tours, horseback riding, ocean, wildlife, and whale watching. Whale watching is primo on the Pacific coast. Sonoma Wine Country, and the Walt Disney Family Museum, which is in San Francisco, which is 100% worth that tour. And even if you got off the boat and just went to it yourself, please go to the Walt Disney Family Museum. It's wonderful. You won't be disappointed. And we will point out, though, the Pacific coast is a little bit chillier than some of the other coasts. So if you don't like colder cruises, just keep that in mind.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, let's hop down to the Panama Canal area, which it was interesting to me that they kind of separated this out. from like some of the other ones. But, you know, who am I to say how they organize everything that they have on their website?
Well, they only do the Panama Canal sometimes. It's like a repositioning cruise because they have to move the ship from one place. This is like on my bucket list. This and a transatlantic, they're on my bucket list. Someday it's going to happen.
Right. So this is probably one of those very specialized itineraries that you get some of these options, but they do have 199 options for the Panama Canal location. Which is like, okay.
Not an even 200? Just
no, 199. I used the filters, Kate. I don't know. The website doesn't lie. So in the Panama Canal, some options that you have are they have a bunch of 4x4 tours. So like 4x4s, think like four-wheeler kind of sand buggies, because they're like four-wheelers, but they have like the roll cages on them in case you fall over in the dunes. They have an Atlantic submarine expedition. Again, lots of
like rolling into the Panama Canal.
I don't think that's actually what happens. I really don't think that.
Sorry. Ignore me. Keep going.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so yes, they have several best of tours in their locations, buggy and beach snorkel options. They have a dolphin swim. They have a chocolate and piñata seaside workshop excursion, which I was like, that's a really interesting combination.
I know which ones we're going to when we go on these cruises. Someday when we win the lottery, it's going to be great.
Oh my gosh. They have a bunch of those clear boat and clear kayak experiences, which is really, really cool to think about. Like, then you can see everything down below you.
There's a lot of people that get freaked out by that, though.
Yeah, great. It's you got to know what you're getting into.
Know yourself.
Yes, so true. Scuba tours. I will mention that any of these that you've heard us say scuba tours, you do have to have like licensing to be able to do some of them. So just keep that in mind. Not for the snorkeling, but yes, for the scuba ones. They have a dolphin and sea lion observer tour. They have tons of different dolphin experiences at this location. A speedboat escape, Stingray City. And then they have a tropical forest tour, which includes zip line.
Stingray City?
Yeah. I don't know.
They live in a city.
I don't know if it's like swimming with like 100 stingrays around you.
Like a ton of stingrays.
Probably, yeah. But then they have, a tropical forest tour, which includes zipline, horseback riding, and a river cruise. And then they have whale watching as well there.
Our last one here is the South Pacific. There's 34 options here, including botanical gardens and bird sanctuary, rainforest and waterfall tours, kayak adventures, historic tours, golf, cheese and wine tasting. Yes, please. And snorkeling as well. So
I thought that was interesting. That was one of the only ones that I saw that included like golfing as an option.
Yeah, well, I think it's really popular there. You know, a lot of people go to Hawaii too to go golfing. So.
Yeah. But I just thought that was interesting that they put that on. Like you can like essentially book your tea time through your Disney excursion, which I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said for the safety of booking through Disney. Yes, you may pay that a little bit of extra, like you were talking about with some of those additional fees, but if you price compare and it's not that much, it's kind of worth it to know that then Disney's going to take care of you if something were to happen. And, you know, itineraries change and ports change and things like that. So there is a little bit of comfort to know that you have that. And also comfort if you've got that, you know, for sure you have that covered in your insurance as well.
Now, I will say that I have too much anxiety to not book directly through Disney.
That would be me too.
I just need it to be taken care of to know that it's like, and then I could just go to somebody on the ship if I need to like deal with something, you know? And
exactly. I'm the same way when I book, like when I buy like tickets for the Disney parks, right? Like there are a couple third-party websites that are fairly reputable that you can book through, but like if you have issues, you're kind of out of luck. So like I feel like this is a similar experience, like especially because you might not have access to your email, which they may be sending you emails if you book third party. You may not have access to your cell phone if you need to make phone calls to confirm things or get information. Like, just keep all those things in mind. Yeah.
So it's nice to know that you could go somewhere to the Port Adventures desk and you can talk to somebody about it instead of having to like worry about, can I get Wi-Fi enough to check my email?
Right. Yeah. Right. Something to be said for that. So in a nutshell, 40 minutes later, that is kind of...
I feel like we kind of went on these virtually, though. So it was fun. We had a little tea with kangaroos. It was great.
I wish we could have more tea with kangaroos.
Also, I have a comment that says New Zealand is the one with the kiwi birds and they're nocturnal. So, just saying.
Maybe you can spot them on the night. Oh, maybe it was Australia that had the night ghost tour or whatever that we saw. So
spot the haunted kiwi birds. I want that for a shirt for spooky season.
Nocturnal kiwi.
The haunted kiwi tour.
That's so random. I love that. Oh my goodness.
Well, all that being said, shall we transition to maybe talking about something on the ship instead of off the ship? Let's talk about kids clubs a little bit, because I think that's there's a lot of options for this, but there's some really great information in here too for people who have maybe some anxiety about putting their kids in clubs. What does it mean? What does you do? How do you do it? What's available? So there is a whole bunch of options by age, but I love that you put this in here because I'd forgotten about this. The Disney Cruise Line website actually has a Disney Cruise Adventure booklet that you can download to help prepare your kids for the cruise. Oh, I have it.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I also have it too.
So I printed this out for my kids.
No, it's so cute.
And we did this before we left, and it was really funny. Not funny. It was really fun for them
cute.
There's things to do before you sail. There's things that while you're on your way to do in the terminal, what they can expect. So I think this is really helpful, especially for kids who do know how to read. If they don't know how to read, you can read to them and help them fill it out if you want to. But there's also things about names on the ship, what badges look like for people who work there.
I thought that page was super helpful because I know that's something I always talk to my kids about in the parks. Like, hey, if you need help, this is what you can find.
Yeah. They also,
these are people that can help you.
They talk about where the restrooms are and how they make a really loud noise and why they do, which is so helpful for the kids. A safety briefing for safety on board, and they have cute little pictures of Mickey putting on his life vest. Stuff for the sail away and meal times. They can write down their service. There's so much stuff here that's great for kids.
Yeah. And it's nice because it's also interactive that you can do before and during. So because there's parts we talked about the port of calls. It talks about my top three favorite activities in port were, and so there's lots of stuff that the kids can fill out as you go. And it's a fun little keepsake too. And there's coloring at the end. Who doesn't love coloring pages?
I know, right?
And I love a little spot for character autographs.
It's so great. And they have little tips in there for parents as well, to kind of remind you about things. And I love that in here at the end of our cruise, it has bold for the kids. It says, I shouldn't pack my clothes or shoes that I wear the last day or anything else I need to have with me in case your parents forget.
Yep.
There's a reminder for you too.
Yep.
Which is so fun. So really, really great resource that they've given for this included, it's for free. You can download it anytime and help prep kids before the trip.
Yes. So. I know that if we ever go on a cruise as a family, both of my kids will need that.
Yeah. It's great. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the nursery?
Yes. So we're gonna kind of go from littlest to biggest when it comes to all of the kid options for kids clubs and things like that. So there is a nursery on board, and it is on all 5 of the current ships that are sailing. So the Magic, the Wonder, the Dream, the Fantasy, and the Wish. And it is a small world themed nursery, which is just adorable. So cute and so fitting for a cruise line that cruises all over the world. With this, though, do keep in mind that these reservations can be tricky to get. So there's a couple different ways that you can book the reservations. You can do it ahead of time, or you can do it first come, first serve during the open house on your embarkation day or anytime throughout your cruise. So our suggestion would be, if you know for sure on times that you are going to want your little to be there, do that ahead of time. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is an age minimum for littles on cruise boats of 6 months.
6 months. Yep.
And
I
believe
can't be younger than that.
And I saw on Disney's that there are a few, I think like the transatlantic and some of those longer ones that they have to be like a year. Yeah. So obviously you probably would have already known that when you go through your booking process, but keep that in mind. So you can book up to 10 reservations online before sailing. And again, these days kind of go based on your Castaway Club membership. Again, very familiar to what we've already been saying. So I'll start kind of first time cruisers. You can do those reservations 75 days in advance. Silver members is 90 days. Gold members is 105, which I think these are all the same as what I just read earlier.
Yeah.
Platinum is 120 and concierge.
It's okay. No,
it's okay. Concierge and Pearl Castaway Club members are 123 days in advance. So again, keep that in mind. That you want to make sure that you get those in, so that way you have those booked. And you may still find times available, during your embarkation day when you go to like the open houses and things like that, but it's never a guarantee when it comes to availability for the nursery.
Right. So something that we did when I went on our first cruise, our second cruise, when we had little kids, my middle daughter, she was only 2 at this time, and so she needed to have the nursery if we needed to have childcare. So we booked a Palo reservations. We booked like an adult dining reservation, and then we just booked the nursery at the same time because we knew that was when we were hoping to be able to go to that, and that worked out really well timing wise for us. We had a little bit of buffer time at the end of dinner too to just kind of like relax and unwind and whatnot and enjoy each other before we collected our kiddos again. So yeah, definitely really fun.
Yeah. And keep in mind that the nursery would be for your 6-month-olds through 2. You'll hear us talk later that they have to be 3 and completely potty trained before they can go on to any of the other kids club areas. So keep that in mind as well, because I know some kiddos are 3 and not potty trained. So just keep all of those things in mind. Your minimum reservation time, if you're using the nurseries, is in a 1-hour time slot. The cost, now this was not directly from Disney. This was from another website. So don't completely quote me on this, but I found this in several different places, that your cost for the nursery is $4.50 per half hour, or $9 per hour for your first child, and then $4 a half hour, or $8 an hour for every additional child.
You get a little bit of a discount if you have multiple kids. Yeah.
So if you can kind of calculate all of that. Do keep in mind that if you have to cancel a reservation, it needs to be canceled at least 4 hours in advance to avoid any sort of charges. Guests who cancel fewer than 4 hours before their reservation will forfeit 50% of the cost of care, and guests who fail to arrive for the reservation without canceling will be charged that full cost. So it's still beneficial for you to cancel, even if it is within that 4-hour time period, save you a little bit of money if something changes. But do keep in mind that's their cancellation policy for the nursery.
What to bring to the nursery. Make sure you have any baby food, formula, milk, and bottles that they need. Diapers, pull-ups, and wipes, depending on their age. Extra clothing, a blanket, and a pacifier, like the things that they might need for comfort while they're away from you, especially at that age. If they have any issues with your kiddo, like if there's something that they need you for or something, they will notify you via the Navigators app. So make sure you have your phone with you wherever you go on the ship, just so that they can access you. Make sure you have your notifications turned on so they can pop up if in case they need you. And we also did note that babies must be 6 months or older to sail. So that's also in there. And there is a family playtime that they have, which is kind of like an open house, which we'll talk about more with the other kids club. But that is where you can actually go into the nursery, because usually you can't go in. You can check them in, but you can't, go in. But this is from about 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So you can go in with your child and kind of help them get comfortable with the space, maybe before you drop them off later in the day, so that they recognize their environment, especially at that age. It can be so helpful for that drop off.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you'll find from what I've read online when I was kind of doing some research about the nursery area, if you are familiar with any sort of kind of like a childcare setup, it's very similar. They've got a play space. They've got a space that's separate with cribs that's got low lights and, soothing music for nap time and things like that. And the other thing I thought was really interesting was there was a woman that I read her kind of experience in the nursery. She was mentioning that she had overheard another parent talking about how her kiddo started to run a fever when they were in the nursery.
Oh, no.
And they weren't able to something happened and her app wasn't getting notifications or whatever. But then the nursery staff actually have in the paperwork, they have the ability to take them to the doctors on the boat for you. And then you can meet them there. So they're completely equipped to handle literally any situation. And do keep in mind that if that were to happen to you, you are required to get cleared by the onboard doctor before returning to the nursery. So fun fact for anyone who hopefully none of you will ever need that. But if it does happen, or if it happens to someone else on your cruise, know that they're looking out for the germs and the safety and well-being of all those involved.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting that the nursery staff can literally take the child if they aren't able to get a hold of the parents in the meantime.
That's good. And when we walked in to pick up our daughter from our experience, they do have characters that visit the nursery, which is so sweet because you think oh, well, they're so little, they're not going to know, right? But they still do have characters visit. And I think it was Wendy was reading a book to my daughter.
So cute.
So cute. Oh my
I gotta think at 2, my son was, my son went on his first trip to the parks when he was 2, and
they do recognize
knew a ton of the characters. Yeah. So yeah.
So they only have certain ones cycle in and out of there, but I think it's really fun that they have that. Yeah. It's really sweet. So.
Yeah.
All right. So should we talk about registering for clubs? This will be for kids that are older, obviously, than the nursery. So these are kids that are 3 and up. So you can register this. You can do this online. You can kind of pre-register them online or at the cruise terminal or at the club itself. Then you can kind of complete the registration. In any case, you're still going to need to go to the club and complete their registration there with your secret word, and you're getting your almost like a magic band, but it's like an Oceaneers Club band for them. You need to make sure at that point you'll talk about allergies and medications and all those kinds of things with them. But they will have you pick a secret word that you'll need to say, and that anybody who's picking up your kids will need to be able to say in order to pick them up. Kids 13 and older can pick up their siblings, and you have to say who is authorized in your room, in your traveling party, to pick up your children. So that is something you have to arrange ahead of time. So if, grandma is not on the list of pre-approved and doesn't know the secret word, they're not going to be able to pick them up from that as a security precaution, which I think is great as a parent.
Yeah. Just don't forget to tell everybody.
Right. Also they have open houses, when embarkation day. Also on some of the other days, they'll have it listed in your Navigator app when the open house is. And this means this is the time when anybody can go into the club. So this is not a time when you could just have your kid there kind of by themselves, because literally anybody's in there. But you can go with your kids and you can play things with them and learn their environment. And this can be good for kids who maybe have a little anxiety about going to the club. But it's also really fun just for them to be able to show you the club. And they're all themed, really fun stuff. You can see that they have Millennium Falcon there. I went to the open house, so I got to see some things with my kids. And you see all the places that they'll play and whatnot. So even if your kids are older, tweens and teens, it's still fun to kind of go see their club. Whether or not they think it's fun is a whole nother thing. But
true.
I still think it's really worth it to go to the open house and check it out with them, just to have that experience. And they're really neat spaces too. So it's fun to be able to see that and play with them. Do you talk about check-in and check-out procedures?
Yes. Yes. So after you have done all your registration and you're good to go with all of that, in order to check in, your kid will have their little Oceaneer band, which is like that magic band that Kate was talking about. And they will keep that for the length of the cruise. And again, we talked about making sure you return it on your last day so you don't get charged, because they are expensive.
Yes.
But so you want to make sure they keep a hold of that and you kind of keep track of where that is. But they will scan in with their Oceaneer band, and that will tell which club your kid is in based on like the tracking. It doesn't work for the whole ship, but just for that specific area, it will be able to tell you, because you'll hear us talk here in a moment about kind of 2 different options for kiddos that they can do. So keep that in mind. And then all kids and ages can check themselves in once they have been registered. So as long as they've been registered, all the paperwork has been good, they are able to check themselves in. After they check in, they will wash their hands at this really cool special hand washing machine.
Isn't it fun?
It is. So we were doing this research and Kate texted me and said, hey, you need to look this up. And I was like, okay, sure. And I looked it up and I was like, that is so cool. So it is Kate is showing you a photo. It's these 2 circles that you put each hand in one, and they literally wash your hands for you.
Yeah, it like rotates around your hands
it, like,
and sprays your hands.
Sprays and gets them all clean. And then do keep in mind that all kids must have shoes and dry clothes to check into the club. So they cannot be drippy wet from the pool. They need to have proper shoes and of some sort, and also dry clothes as well. And then a tip from Kate is to check the schedule for fun events happening in the clubs that the kids might want to go to. So if they have different activities and events at different times, check your Navigator app for those to make sure you don't miss them.
Right. And they also put them kind of outside the clubs. They'll usually have kind of like a list of what's happening there.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one says, icebreakers at 5:45, human bingo at 6:15, 6:45, meet your counselors.
Human bingo?
Human bingo, yeah. They like use the kids and like move them around. So they have counselors in there. It's not just like toys and movies and things like that. Right. They have counselors that do activities pretty much all day, and they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They also have characters that will come in and do stuff. They have crafts. They have cooking.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so lots of things. Sorry. I'm just saying, it's just like really fun. So check to see, because my kids were like, oh, we have to go back for like this activity. And so I had to like look up what time that was and like add it into our schedule and whatnot. So
can you add those on your app? Are they options that you can like put in your itinerary?
I think so. I think you can pretty much anything you can like heart and it will like add it to your itinerary. But I'm not sure with the kids clubs. I think it was though. I'm pretty sure virtually any activity on the ship you could do that with.
Right. It would be silly if you couldn't, because like I would lose track of all those schedules. So
yes, me too.
And checking out when you are done for your time or for the day. To check out, you must have a valid person registered for pickup. So Kate mentioned making sure that you give names for all of those that are, allowed to pick up. The exception is if they are over 8 and they have permission to check themselves out, they are able to do so. So that is all squared away during your registration process. If you want to give them, your kiddos that are over 8, the ability to check themselves out, they are able to. And then you will show your Key to the World card if you are the person picking up. You have to know the secret word that you have set for your family. And then kids have the counselors contact you if they want to leave and they don't have the self-checkout permission. So again, through your app, they can contact you and say like, hey, kiddo is ready to go, and they can coordinate with you from there.
Right. And same thing as before. If they have any problems or anything, they'll contact you through that. So if your kids are in the clubs, just, keep your phone near you just in case something happens. But the clubs themselves are very secure, so there's no way for the kids to get out without permission. So there's always somebody kind of manning the front desk area, the check-in area, and they have these electronic gates that you have to like scan, or they have to open it in order for the kids to get out. So they can't physically run by anybody or escape, so you can feel confident that that's a safe option. And if you are a parent of somebody who is 8 plus, I was reading a discussion about this because I was also having a little bit of like anxiety about it because like my 8-year-old, my 9-year-old hadn't really like gone and done all this stuff yet, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I want them to have that permission. So my rule for my family became my 11, at that point the club would allow up to 12-year-old. It's changed since then, but I would allow my 11-year-old and my 8-year-old. I said, well, you guys can leave, but only together. Mm-hmm. And the only places they were allowed to go is like they could get ice cream, but then they had to come directly back to the room. So they knew the route to go get ice cream and then come back. But there's a lot of parents that say like just to make kind of an agreement about what they're allowed to do. So they're not just like having free range of the ship, especially because they don't have, unless they have a phone themselves, they don't have a way to communicate with you. except for going to a cast member and being like, page my parents. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I saw that, and that's kind of crazy because like my oldest is 7 currently, and I can't imagine in a year when he's 8.
Right?
No.
I know. And there's still like, there's people on the ship that like, they're still strangers. There's thousands of strangers. So safety first always with those things, but you know your kids. And so I think that was a good idea. Is like, it's giving them a little taste of freedom, but it's also like, there's an expectation that once they leave the club, they come directly back. So, you know, they're either, you know, one of 3 places if you need to find them. So I thought that was good as a parent.
Yeah. So. I agree. Very, very true. Because that would be my concern. Like,
I had to do a lot of like, just like, okay, they're going to be fine. Like, they need their freedom.
Breathe.
It's going to be fine. But no, they were fine. My 13-year-old got a lot more leeway of running the ship. So
different story with that.
They thought it was so great to have the freedom to go get ice cream and then come back. Like, they thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Until they get a stomach ache from eating too much ice cream, and then they go, I should probably think more about this before I go get more.
Yeah, but like, they couldn't go swimming or anything without me. You know, like, they have to have those things. So anyway,
yes.
The last note I wanted to throw in here is that there are movies on or quiet spaces available for kids if they need to rest while they're in the club, and they have little nap mats that they can pull out that they can lay on if they need to rest. So the counselors won't disturb them or you if they happen to take a nap during the time they're visiting. So if your kids are on like a really strict nap schedule, be aware that, you know, like, if they get really tired, they might just take a nap there. And, you know, so that's up to you. And like, if you want them to sleep, that's great. If you don't, you know, just keep that aware of that during their regular nap time. But there are spaces in there that are just less stimulating if they need to get away from all the noise.
Yes. That being said, the kids clubs don't have like a designated nap area.
No, it's just a little quieter-ish areas.
But you still got kids running through, so you never know, right?
Yeah.
So true. All right, shall we talk about the 2 different options for kiddos?
I do have a question here. Do you know if the people who work in the clubs have experience with kids with autism? And basically the way it works is they do have training for a lot of kids, but they have to be able, there's no one-on-one care available in these clubs. So your kids have to be independent enough to be able to function and play with all the other kids around without one-on-one attention. So just keep that in mind. You know your own child and what they need. And it might be that maybe you just go there with the open house with them because they need that one-on-one attention, and that's the only way they can get it is with you. So just keep that in mind. So that being said, let's talk about the Oceaneer Club. Go for it.
Yes. Okay. So the Oceaneer Club is one of the options for your kiddos ages 3 to 10. And again, they do have to be fully toilet trained in order to attend. It is typically open from 9 a.m. to midnight, except on embarkation days, port days, and open houses. Their hours may vary. So again, that information is always going to be in your Navigator app. So check that out. We already talked about you can pre-register online or register once on board. And then here's kind of just a rundown of the different themed areas. I just thought this was a fun little detail for each of the boats. Each of them also have those guided activities that Kate was talking about in addition to the following themed areas. So these are just kind of generally themed areas that you will find in this club in all of the, or in the Oceaneers Club. So keep that in mind. On the Magic, you have Andy's Room, you have a Marvel area, you have a Disney Junior area, and Pixie Hollow. On the Wonder, you have Andy's Room, Marvel, Minnie and Mickey, and Frozen. On the Dream, you have Andy's Room, a Disney Infinity area, Pixie Hollow, and then a Star Wars Millennium Falcon area. And then on the Fantasy, you have Andy's Room, the Star Wars Command Post, the Marvel Superhero Academy, and Pixie Hollow. And then on the Wish, you have a Marvel area, Star Wars area, Fairy Tale Hall, an Imagineering Lab, and Minnie and Mickey with that one. And I will note that the Wish is the only boat currently that only has one area for kids ages 3 to 10. So that's why they have an Imagineering lab where the other ones don't, because you'll hear us talk more about labs here in a moment.
Yeah.
So the Wish has kind of a little bit more on their list because they do only have one kids area for ages 3 to 10. And then they also have character performances, special storytelling, interactive activities, toys and games, arts and crafts, and Disney movies available pretty much 24/7 while they're open.
9 to midnight.
9 to midnight. So they have tons and tons of different themed areas and themed things that the kids can explore and interact, just kind of free play, as well as guided activities if they choose to do those with the counselors that are in there.
Right. So then we also have the Oceaneer Lab. So I like to think of it as the Oceaneer Club is kind of geared towards younger children, and the Oceaneer Lab is more towards the older end of the elementary school spectrum. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that they don't have access to both, because maybe they want to just do some running around and climbing on stuff versus, sitting down and doing crafts or, write something on a computer screen or whatever. So really depends on what activities happening too. But this is, again, ages 3 to 10. Used to be 12. That's a recent change. And a lot of people are upset about that who have booked a cruise thinking that their kiddo would be in it.
Right.
Again, same hours as before, 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. roughly, depending, except for embarkation day. There's definitely more activities and crafts in this area than the club. And so they also have guided activities in addition to the themed areas. So Magic and Wonder, they have Animator Studio, Captain's Workshop, Craft Studio, and the Wheelhouse. The Wheelhouse is fun because you can kind of steer the ship, which is really cool. The Dream and Fantasy, they have the Animator Studio, the Craft Studio, Media Room, Playmation, and the Wheelhouse as well. So there's a little bit of a note here because depending on the ship, the Oceaneer Lab and Club might be divided in two separate locations, which means you would need to check them out and then check them back into another one, which is frustrating. So on the newer ships, they're connected because they realized that was a huge problem for kids who wanted to transfer. And then they would have to pull the parent in to get them to move from one to the other.
Right.
So that's mostly on the older ships that's the issue. And the newer ships, they are all connected. So they can kind of just run freely from one to the other. And when you go to check them back out, they'll kind of locate where they are in which club and they'll find them for you. So you don't have to worry about that too much, about going to the wrong one to check them back out.
Right. And that's what we were mentioning with that RFID that works just in the kids club areas. They'll be able to tell you which end of everything they're located in and track them down that way.
Right.
And again, they also have, all of these places have kind of ratios that they have to keep. They're never going to have more kids than they can handle based on the staffing that they have and things like that. That's kind of, that's just legal in general when it comes to daycares and childcare and things like that. So, and they always have someone with them that has eyes on them at pretty much all times.
Yeah. And they're all about safety. They all have background checks. They all have that's why they have to be fully potty trained 100% completely, because they don't do anything with them in the bathroom. They're, for safety. And it's cool. The bathrooms though, I didn't go into the bathrooms while I was there, but they have the little hand washing stations in the bathroom too, which is really cool. I'm like, oh, that's great. Cause you think your kid's going to get really sick from the club. Well, at least they have those really cool hand washing stations to try to minimize it a little bit.
Right. Encourage them to fully wash their hands. So, that's always helpful.
So anyway, the clubs are wonderful. If your kid has a little bit of a trepidation about it, make sure you head to that open house to check it out with them. A lot of people say just encourage their kids. Why don't you try it, for X amount of time? And if it's not for you, then you don't have to stay, But most of the time, depending on your kid, but most of the time, once the kids spend a little bit of time in there, those counselors are so great. And there's so many cool activities going on in there. They usually want to stay. So. Yeah,
that's what our friend Kathy B over here on my side of the chat earlier said. The kids didn't want us. They wanted to go to the clubs. She said, I never saw my kid whenever we were there because they just always wanted to be in the clubs hanging out. So
that's how my son was in the Edge for tweens, which is coming up next.
Yes, let's jump to tween age here and talk about what options they have, because those specific age range options don't stop at just 10 years old. They do have options for tweens and teens as well. So Edge is the name of the club, so to speak, for the tweens that they can visit. And it is for ages 11 to 14. And inside they've got flat screen TVs, they've got computers, video games. They also have those daily guided activities as well, that are age appropriate for those 11 to 14-year-olds to be able to participate in. As far as hours go, a little shift. They are 10 to 1 a.m. So they do have that.
They're not early
later
risers,
shift,
that
right?
age group.
Yes. So a little bit later of a start and a little bit later into the night they go for that. And they have completely different areas from what we said earlier. So they have an area called That's Hilarious, which is like a comedy show area where you can like essentially like produce your own type of comedy show. They have a Heroes and Villains area where teams compete to solve clues and complete challenges in there. They have the Crowning of the Couch Potato, which is a trivia contest for Disney things and Disney related questions there. They have a Pirate's Life for Me, which are physical challenges and trivia combined kind of with that. And then they have the Descendants Den DJ spin-off, which includes a photo booth and DJ lessons and games as well. And you can find that area on all 5 of the current Disney ships. So the Magic, Wonder, Dream, Fantasy, and the Wish.
And I will say that this is not an area where you check in and out of your, your child doesn't check in and out at all. They can just kind of come and go as they wish. There are open house hours for adults to go in and check it out, but otherwise it's just for them to go to. And my son kept wanting to be there, and he knew like the counselors would really like talk up the thing that's happening later. He's like, oh, I have to be back for this. And they did like almost like a night swim for them, but they did like they closed the aqueduct except for the people in like the teens and in the edge, or the tweens in the edge. And so he's like, it's just us. We get to go as many times as we want, and there will be nobody else. And it was like,
that's so fun.
It was so cold outside. It was like 40 degrees.
Oh no!
But they're like, but they turned on the lights and everything, and they thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like,
right.
you great,
you
have
go
fun,
for it.
And he made a lot of friends. So it's a really fun place for them to hang out, especially at such an awkward age where it's weird. Like, what do? You're not going to hang out with the kids stuff. You're not quite ready for the adult stuff. So it's great that they have that space for them.
Yeah. And it's nice that they also kind of have those options for some of the maybe more introverted kiddos at that age, where they've got the video games, or you can just hang out and watch a movie, or, those types of things as well. So lots of different options for pretty much any kid to find something that will fit their need for just hanging out on the boat.
Right. 100%. That being said, at age 14, they graduate to the Vibe, which is the teens area. Mm-hmm. So it's ages 14 to 17. They've got flat screen TVs, video games, board games, and tablets. Areas include Teen Download, which is latest media technology. Vibe Movie Makers, so you can learn the skill of making movies. My son would be all about that. Gotcha, which is an ultimate game of elimination. They have a coffee bar and snacks, and this is on the Magic, Wonder, Dream, Fantasy, and Wish. So a space just for the teens to hang out and get to know each other and be a little social, maybe play some video games, those kinds of things. So
yeah, it seems like the setup between the two is very similar. They just have they're going to gear it. Some of the guided activities and things like that are going to be a little more geared towards age appropriate. Yeah, and keep in mind that if you've got a kiddo that's kind of on those bubble ages between, because technically 14 could visit either one. They're technically age eligible for either. Just keep that in mind, whether or not you want your 14-year-old is okay to be with the 17-year-olds, or if you'd rather your 14-year-old be with the 11-year-olds. That's a decision that you have to make, because a lot of the media that they're putting in there is going to be age appropriate for either of those age ranges. So again, nothing is going to be inappropriate. You're on a Disney cruise ship. You don't have to worry about what they're going to have access to as far as that goes, but just keep those things in mind.
Yeah. And, it's a good thing to talk about with your kid too, because there's some 14-year-olds that might really feel ready for that next step. And there's some that are just like, maybe just a little bit on the younger side that might not be wanting to hang out with 17-year-olds yet, So it's a really good conversation to have with your kiddo about like what they might feel more comfortable with. And again, going to those open houses at that age, might be that time to kind of have those conversations as well.
For sure.
So do you want to talk about Scuttle's Cove?
Yes, let's talk about Scuttle's Cove. This is on Castaway Key, so we're hopping off the boat for this one briefly. And it is open from 9 to 3:30, and it has exciting activities there for the kids to do, such as a dig and treasure hunt. And it gives a little bit of kid-free time for parents. So that is an option if you are visiting Castaway Key as well. And just a note that the clubs on board the ship are not available until 4 p.m. that day, because remember we talked about that on on some of the ports and Castaway Key days that the hours change. So this is kind of your option when you're at Castaway Key. If you want to utilize those kid areas, you're going to go to Scuttle's Cove for that one.
Right, because you can't leave your kid on the ship and leave the boat. I'm pretty sure of that. Like, you can't leave them registered in the kids club and then leave the ship. So you got to take your kid with you if you're going to leave the ship, in which case they still provide an option to watch your kids safely at this particular port. So
yes, the clubs become an open house during this time. So you won't have like the standard activities with those. It'll just be like an open house, like anybody is allowed to visit at that time, and you stay with your kiddo at that point in the open house. It's not like a drop them off and go type of thing. So their hours will be shifted because Scuttle's Cove is open from 9 to 3:30.
Yeah, so. And a lot of the crew members, this will be like their day off, or this will because they'll know most people will be on shore. So the port days, the crew members have like shifting responsibilities to do other things on the ship sometimes. So that's why they change their staffing appropriately, because less people need the clubs on the ship. So
typically you will see on standard days those, what did we say, 9 to midnight or 10 to 1 times for those clubs. But specifically Castaway Key and a couple other port days that you may see shifts in that, depending on what's going on and depending on the excursions offered, depending on staffing, depending on kind of all of that. They have varying hours. And all of that, as we've always said with all of this, it will be available in your Navigator app. So your Disney Cruise Line app is going to be where you're going to want to check to see hours and make your plans accordingly, and all of that for the kids club and the teen and tween areas too.
Right. And we did kind of touch on this before, but just a little mention about special needs kiddos in these clubs. The Oceaneer Club and Oceaneer Lab, they offer a range of activities with Disney committed to making these experiences accessible to children of all abilities. But they do need to be fully potty trained, capable of participating individually, and able to interact comfortably with peers. Those are the current requirements for children. So, assess your child, know your situation there. Disney cannot provide services to children requiring one-on-one care. And parents should communicate their children's specific needs and preferences to the youth counselor. So if there's something where, like, yes, they can be in that environment, but here's a couple of things that they need to know, just in case maybe there's a situation where they would need to contact you, just make sure you're communicating that to the counselors, especially at registration and whatnot. For further assistance on this, you can also contact Disney Cruise Line directly. There's special services at 407-566-3602, or you can contact them at specialservices@disneycruise.com. So if you have specific questions about needs for your child, that is the place to go with all of your questions.
Yes. So. All right. I think that wraps up at least the kids' specific areas portion. Shall we talk about... Yes, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that everybody's saying, this is what all the kids get. We don't get any of that. How come we don't get any of that? So now we're going to move on to the things that it's accessible to everybody.
Yes. And we're going to first talk about Kate's favorite, which are the shows. So Kate, tell us about these shows that we can see on the cruise line.
Yeah. So I've mentioned this in previous episodes that some of these Broadway level show, like legit Broadway level shows, are not to be missed. They are fabulous. Like, you would pay so much money to see these shows on Broadway,
right?
But they're included in the cost of your show or the cost of your cruise. And some of them are a little bit better than others. I feel like the ones that are based on Disney stories are really, really good, like exceptionally good. And the ones like the Golden Mickeys and stuff are just really, really fun. But so the Disney Magic, they have Tangled, the musical, Disney Dreams, Twice Charmed, which is an original twist on the Cinderella story, The Disney Wonder has Frozen, Disney Dreams again, and the Golden Mickeys. The Disney Dream has Beauty and the Beast, which is amazing. Their set design is incredible, so don't miss that one. Disney's Believe and the Golden Mickeys, which is super fun. And then Disney Fantasy, they've got Frozen again, Aladdin, which is a musical spectacular. It's the same as the Wish version you've seen. And then Disney's Believe. And then on the Disney Treasure, so this is the upcoming ship that is not open yet, they're going to have Seize the Adventure, SEAS, Seize the Adventure, same as the Wish. Beauty and the Beast, same as the Dream. An all-new stage show, which is still to be announced. So it says they're doing a brand new one, not on any other ship. So that's some new show, which will be fantastic. And so I would not skip those shows. Usually it's opposite your dining time. So they do it twice per night. So you can either, do it before dinner or after dinner, depending on what seating you're at for your main dining experience in the evening. And I arrive about 15 minutes before if you want to get a really good seat.
I was going to say, is it just like general admission seating? You don't have to like reserve seats or anything for those.
Yeah, you just, everybody shows up and you pile in. And there's like a main floor and then there's like balcony levels depending on, and they're different like ship levels. different. So just kind of know where to go for that depending on where you want to sit. But
yeah,
they do get pretty full. But not everybody goes to the shows. Some people have kids they want to put down. They want to go do some other activity. They're not interested in the show. So I don't think I've ever seen it like sold out, or it's not sold out because you don't pay, but like, where you can't get in. But you can end up like way in the back, where it's harder to see. And sometimes I would recommend trying to get one that is down on the main floor because sometimes they have things like confetti or things that and they're really fun for the kids to be like immersed in it versus, up in the balcony. So that's my suggestion. So
yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. And I think if you've never taken your kiddo to a theater like that before, that's a great first way. If you're already going to be on the boat, it's a great first way to kind of see how they do in that situation and see how they react to everything. So
they go on a really fast clip, so it's not like movies that maybe might have slower parts to it. They keep things moving pretty quickly, which I think keeps kids engaged really well
because they know that there are going to be kids in their audience. When you see these shows on Broadway, yes, they may be Disney, but they're not really geared towards 5, 6, 7-year-olds like the movies are. The shows are geared towards a little bit of an older audience. So this way they can kind of reel it back down to some of those younger audiences, but still make it accessible to everybody and enjoyable for everybody. So Disney's really good at that. So
try not to miss the shows. That's my recommendation.
All right. Shall we talk about the theme nights that you can do?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple different options that they have, and every cruise will have a theme night of some sort. Some of them, you can book directly specific cruises for specific theme nights, but in general, your cruise night is probably going to have a pirate night. That's the most common one. That's the common thread throughout all of these that you'll see when you're looking at the information that Disney Cruise Line puts out for you to be able to prep for your cruise and that type of thing. So that's kind of the general one that most people get. But they also have things like the Marvel Day at Sea. That one is one that I believe, can book a specific cruise for that specific encounter. There's
a Pixar. Oh, sorry.
You're good. You're jumping.
I know, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry.
They have a Pixar Pals Party and Halloween on the High Seas. Again, these are all ones that you can specifically book. And then they have a Frozen Deck Party as well, which Kate was sad to not get on her cruise line. And I'm going to be done bringing it up now.
Well, and they also have most of these, depending on where they are at and, where the ship is at, most of them will have fireworks on this night as well, which is pretty spectacular to do. It was a bummer, though, in our European one. They just weren't in a place where they could, legally set off fireworks. So it will depend on your itinerary and where you're at any given time. My tips for Pirate Night is plan ahead. Plan ahead, get your gear together, get your outfits. When we did it, we didn't have... Oh, yeah, I have it. So this was from our Pirate Night. I did buy this one on the ship. Oh, I can't put two hats on at the same time here. So, and Elliot got a goofy one, but I have this really cute one, and they don't sell these ones anymore, which is a bummer. But they usually do have some pirate gear that they have like on the ship itself, but it sells out really quickly because those are all the people that like didn't plan or didn't realize or didn't know or just thought, oh, I just want to buy the Disney merch. Right. So a lot of it will sell out early in your cruise, and they don't restock it till they get like the end of the cruise. So just keep that in mind, like especially just shopping in general on there, that if you see it, buy it early in the cruise because it might not be there. They don't have a whole bunch of extra stock necessarily that they can restock it with. So, and a lot of, I have a question. Do you have to wear themed clothes to the ship's day events? No, it's never required to wear any themed clothes. You can wear cruise casual, whatever you feel like. You do have to wear clothes. But you don't have to wear themed clothes if you prefer not to. It's just a little bit of extra fun, especially if you've got kiddos as well, to have the whole family and they've got photo ops and all those kinds of things. So,
yeah. And keep in mind, if you've got fireworks sensitive kiddos like I do, that's the night you need to prepare for fireworks.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. That being said, should we talk a little bit about some other onboard activities?
Yes, let's. There's a whole big list of them.
I know I added a whole bunch. So do we want to go back and forth maybe on this list?
Sure.
So
Perfect.
Me. So this is the free onboard activities, and this is just some of them. So this is not an extensive list, and it might change cruise, per cruise and what's available and whatnot. So just take that with a grain of salt. But these are activities that are usually more available on their at-sea days than at port days, but that doesn't mean that they don't still do some activities during days they're in port. So one is trivia, which I also am triggered by. They have trivia that's
I wasn't going to bring it up. Kate was smarter than the trivia cast members, and
they had Imagineering trivia, and they didn't get the questions right. And there were several of us in the audience that were really bad. We're like... First of all, they were talking about the wrong speed for some of the attractions. So we all got the answer wrong because we had the answer right and they didn't. And then they also had, sorry, I'm going on my soapbox, but they also called it Autotopia instead of Autopia. And so everybody got it wrong. I was like, because you got it wrong. Disney. Sorry. Anyway, they have trivia. They have trivia for Disney music, movies, and Imagineering. And, that's really fun family activity. And then winners do get a special medal to take home, which my son really wanted me to get, and I'm sad that I didn't get it for him. They also have some other game show type activities that are family friendly. So,
yes. Okay, moving on from Kate's soapbox.
So sorry. No, it's okay. I will forever be sad that I didn't get that medal for my son. That was my moment. They
should have fixed that, or you just all should have gotten the medals.
Right?
Come on, Disney. Anyway, okay, so you can also visit. They have sports and fitness areas on the boats that you have access to as well that you can visit if you so choose to do that on your vacation.
Yes. They also have mini golf, which is something I did with my girls, which was really fun. It's only like 9 holes, but it's themed. It's on all ships, but the Disney Magic and Wonder, it was like on the 14th deck. So it was in that goofy sports area, this goofy sports deck. But it was this one that I went to was themed as Goofy and Max. And so it was all weird, funny, goofy, silly gags and stuff. And so it was really fun to do. They have little wooden balls instead of the other ones. I don't know why they're wooden, but it was fun anyway. We had a good time, and it's free. So
there's probably some reason.
I'm sure. If they probably because if it gets hit
float.
Off, yeah, it might be because if they get hit off of the boat, and they're not polluting the ocean too. I'm guessing, it's just like maybe they don't hurt as bad if somebody hits somebody with them. I don't know. They were like a lightweight wood.
Who knows? We can speculate all we want. Also available on that Goofy Sports Deck area is they've got basketball courts up there as well.
They also have shuffleboard that's available usually on deck 4 is where you'll find shuffleboard in case you ever want to learn that classic shuffleboarding. I've never done it, but I've seen people do it. I've watched them as I walk by. So.
They also have running tracks for those of you that are runners and don't want
like all the sports ones by accident.
Oh, but if you are training for a marathon and you need to run on your Disney cruise, they've got you covered with your running track, typically on deck 4 of your ship.
It is a nice place to stroll, too, if you just want to take a nice little walk so you don't have to run it. They also have movie theaters, usually Buena Vista Theater. They play Disney movies there. It's often ones that are currently still in theaters that you would have to pay to go take your family to. So nice. We've seen so many movies on Disney cruise ships that we didn't then have to go to pay to take our family to the theater, which was great. So, and they also play some older movies too, classic Disney films and whatnot. So, and it's a really comfy theater. So great place to
They have like theater popcorn and snacks and stuff.
I feel like they did, because Ellie got me popcorn.
Have to have something.
I feel like we had to pay for it. I think you have to pay for it extra.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah. But Elliot did give me popcorn once, so I know they do have popcorn.
Okay, well, there you go. That's bare minimum. We'll take it. There are also pool areas. Obviously, we've talked about swimming already on this series, but do note that swim diapers are prohibited in the pools, but you can use them in the splash zone area. So keep that in mind if you've got a little that likes to go in the water. Keep that in mind. That is their Disney rule for on the cruises.
Yeah, and they are required in those splash zone areas. Like this is Nemo's Reef that you can see. It's pretty extensive, but you have to be 8 and under to go into this area. So keep that in mind for that.
Yes, and they also have the Aqua Duck and Aqua Mouse water slides, depending on which cruise you're on will depend on which name you get to experience. Those do have height requirements. Those are on the newer ships. They are 42 inches and up for those slides. And those are the really cool, clear slides that you'll see going kind of out almost over the edge of the ship, which sounds exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, and it kind of goes like all the way around through the funnel and then around the other side. So it's like almost like a giant U around the deck. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
So they also have funnel vision, which is basically just movies that they play on the giant funnel that is over the pool. So you can watch movies while you swim or just sit on deck, which is fun. They play virtually all day. So even when there's nobody there, there's still movies playing. So.
And then, of course, they've got the free soft serve ice cream on the pool deck, which is a favorite for not only just Kate's kids, but probably every kid that ever goes on.
They also have pizza and things there, too. It's kind of like a quick stop for food. But the ice cream, I think, is a favorite for everybody.
Yeah. Connor's got a good question. Is there an age limit on the slides? I don't believe that there's any sort of limit age-wise.
There is a water slide, not the Aqua Mouse, not the Aqua Duct, but there is a height limit on one of the slides that's a smaller slide. So yes, there is a water slide that has a height limit. You can't be above a certain height to go on it. So they also have several nightclubs and lounges, like a lot, like more than you would think. There's a lot of nightclubs and lounges. I don't even think I checked them all out, but some of them have really, really unique themes, and they'll do special activities in there as well. That's where you'll see a lot of the trivia nights and things like that. So,
and the candy shop. Yay, candy shop. I was like, I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't put a lot of notes on that one.
It's okay.
So they're all themed. Like there's a Vanellope Von Sweets like candy shop. They're all themed really creative ways. And then they have like, where you can fill up your bag full of candy. Obviously, it's an additional fee for those, but they're kind of just like a unique, fun little place. You can take your kids if you want to go to the candy shop. There's also shopping. Just we've mentioned before, make sure you check the store hours. They're not open all day long. It will really depend on, if you're at sea or at port, and also in the evenings, they have specific hours and people do line up for good items early. So keep that in mind.
Yes. You can also find character meet and greets around the boat as well. So keep an eye out for those on your Navigator app and check out who's going to be available. Now, I wonder, do they do like mystery ones too on the cruises, or is it always like, do they always say who it's going to be?
I mean, I will just see random characters pop up in the thing, but I'm pretty sure they're scheduled. So I haven't paid enough attention to know if they have surprise ones.
Right.
but usually they do, and they'll pop up during like shows and things too. Like there's a lot of characters around. Like,
Yes. Right.
There's a really fun midship detective agency game that's kind of like a scavenger hunt. Like if you've ever done, what is the one that's the Phineas and there was Phineas and Ferb, Kim Possible. There was like a couple. What is it now? It's Rescue
DuckTales.
DuckTales. I was like, Rescue Rangers. Wow. I'm like pulling all the names of the things that it's not. The one in Epcot that's kind of like, there's things that happen when you look, you do things on your app and then like things pop out and whatnot. Same kind of concept, but you can do it on the ship and you can kind of start and stop it at any given time. So you don't have to do it all at once. And there's 3 different missions you can take, and it's interactive with the magical artwork that's on the ship. So it's a really kind of fun activity, especially if you're at sea days when maybe you're looking for something to do. But that is just another thing you can do that's free.
Very cool. And then they also have a toddler time that they offer. So Kate, do you want to talk about that since you kind of know a little bit more?
So this is something usually really early in the morning, like 7 a.m.-ish. So if your toddler's getting you up really early, they have a lot of energy. Maybe if you want to let one parent sleep and you are already up, you can go take them. It used to be Wake Up with Disney Junior. I don't know if it's still that. I tried to find the information and I couldn't find it before this, but usually there's still a toddler time in the morning that's with the counselors and usually a couple characters, and they do a lot of jumping and bouncing and all the toddler things. So that's a really fun kind of toddler preschool time in the morning when they have a lot of energy to do. And they also have some character drawing classes, kind of like animation academy. I was like, what's the name of it? Where you just learn how to draw characters and whatnot.
Yeah, a couple different classes. They've also got animal towel folding classes, which I would take that. That would be so fun.
You could learn how
to fold them. And then they also have I'm going to pair it with this next one, learning new cooking skills along the chefs in the Anyone Can Cook classes as well.
Yeah, and there's also karaoke and some magician shows and just some extra entertainment that you can find. Again, just check your Navigators app. I didn't list all of them. That's already a really long list, and that's only a small portion of what's available. And again, it's all included with your cruise, so all of this is included. But do we want to talk about a couple of things that are onboard activities with an extra cost?
Yes, let's. There are far less of these than that one, which is kind of nice.
That is nice
to think about. But on some of the ships, they do offer beverage tasting seminars. So if that is something that sparks your interest, you might want to look into that. Do keep in mind that you have to have a reservation for that. And they do have a cancellation policy of 24 hours prior to avoid any charges and things like that. All 5 ships do have a Bippity Boppity Boutique and Pirates League. So that's super exciting. If you're someone who's never been able to snag that reservation during your park visits, maybe you can grab it while you're on the cruise line. And again, these are all reservations that have to be made, kind of like we talked about with the other reservation timeframes with that Castaway Club membership date and all that kind of thing. And again, same thing. Keep in mind they have that 24-hour cancellation policy. We talked about character greetings. So they do have some that are free on the boat and that are just included and you can just find. But then they do have specific ones that you can book through your reservation system. Kate, have you guys ever done that on any of your cruises?
Yeah, we did one with this is back when Frozen was at its peak, and we did Elsa and Anna because they were only available with that. And we went to concierge the second we got on the boat, and we were able to secure a time for that. So and it was basically just a meet and greet, but it was you got a little bit more time with them, and photos and whatnot. So yeah, but there are ones on the Wish only, they have Olaf's Royal Picnic, which is a paid one. That's a paid experience with Olaf, and then it is. I think it's a meal, right?
Yeah, it's a dining character dining, so to speak.
Right. So if you cancel, you're going to be charged the full person cost. So just weigh your options with that one. Now, we talked about the Goofy sports deck and all the sports up there, which a lot of it is free, but there is kind of this virtual simulator thing you do have to book it, and you'll be charged 50% of your booking fee if you cancel the day of your session. So just watch out for the costs on that one. But that one is a little extra fee for a cool experience.
Yes,
for the sports.
For the sports things. Yay. So yeah, that's just for the simulator if that's something that you want to use while you're there. And then they also have a Royal Court Royalty, which you can find on the Magic, Wonder, Dream, and Fantasy. So if that's something that you want to look into, that is something that they have to offer as well. And again, that's one of those, that's like a 3-day out cancellation thing. So that's a big one. So keep that in mind.
And that's with all the princesses. That's the princessy thing. So
the princessy thing.
You can do your bippity boppity boutique, and then you can go to
a lot of people will try to plan those two together. So that way your kiddos are all decked out in their outfits when they go to meet the princesses. So
yes.
Super fun. And then they have a spa and a salon, which should be kind of expected when it comes to those types of things. And then they also have bingo that you can pay to participate as well.
Yeah, it's a small fee for that one, but it does cost extra. So,
yes.
Whew, that's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff. There's lots of things to do. And lots of things to get off the boat to do, lots of things to stay on the boat to do. It's just a lot.
And that's why a lot of people, especially first-time cruisers, they get really overwhelmed because they try to do too much. So just kind of know that this is a little bit like a buffet, and you just pick what you want to eat. You don't have to eat everything, and you probably shouldn't eat everything, and do more of what you really love and less, and don't feel obligated to do things that you're just not that interested in doing. And remember that you're on vacation, and make time to rest and relax and, chill in your room and watch a movie as a family or something like that. Don't always feel like you have to be on the go and doing all the things. And that's my best advice.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to want to do all the things.
That's solid advice. But I mean, you guys just heard the whole second half of this episode. We talked about everything there is to do on the ship for the kids and the adults and everyone alike. So,
right.
Tons and tons of options. You just have to decide, if it's your first cruise, you have to decide how much relaxation time versus how much kind of exploration time you want, and how you want to divide your time out, and what your needs are for your kiddos and their ages and all of that.
Right. So that being said, I think we finished this topic, but I know that we still have to do Ask the Moms, right?
Yes.
Before we wrap this episode. So Jackie, I want to ask you this one.
Okay.
So those of you who don't know, this is our Ask the Mom segment where we get a question from you guys about how to tour the Disney parks or plan a Disney trip. And so our question today is, which Walt Disney World park has the best fireworks / nighttime show for preschool and young elementary age kids?
That is a really good question, and that is my children. So, so let's talk about that.
This question.
Yes. My kids are 5 and 7, so it really just depends on a couple things. If they love the big flashy fireworks, then you're going to want to go to Magic Kingdom. If they are music kiddos and they just like listening to the music, I would say Magic Kingdom or Epcot. Both have really good music for their show. If they want to see the physical characters, then you got to take them to Fantasmic.
Yes.
So it really just depends on that. A couple things to note if you're doing Magic Kingdom or Epcot, it's not like a seating area. So you're going to be standing around trying to find your best vantage point, navigating your stroller through that area, because I'm going to assume if you've got preschool and young elementary, you're probably having a stroller with you.
Probably.
So keep that in mind. Fantasmic is bench seating, so that is helpful. But if you've got little kiddos that don't sit well, or need the ability to wiggle and move, that's something to consider as well, because, my kids are a little bit of both. So when we do Fantasmic, we hope that there's a first and second show so we can go to a less busy show. If that doesn't always happen, we just have to plan accordingly, because they don't sit well for long periods of time.
Yeah, my son's older and refuses to go to a show where he can't sit. So times change because he used to be one of those wiggly kids who wanted to run all the time. So
yeah.
maybe there's hope in the future for more sitting for you, Jackie.
We'll see. I don't know. Long story short, I mean, if I ask them right now what their favorite show is, they're going to tell you Fantasmic. That's their favorite and will probably be their favorite for forever. They don't love fireworks though, so that's part of it. They both are kind of sound sensitive, so they like Magic Kingdom just because they like the castle and they would rather watch the projections and see the fireworks but not hear the fireworks. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, they could always watch it, from like the Polynesian or something if they wanted to see the fireworks but not like hear them so harshly.
Right.
Would also be an option.
Exactly. And Kayla in our chat just mentioned a really good point that we should mention. Thank you, Kayla. She said the new drone show at Springs is amazing. And I have seen videos. And I was just telling Kate this earlier, but I've seen videos and it looks amazing. But I have not experienced it myself, so I can't speak to that one. But from what I've seen, it looks amazing and it looks very family friendly. But again, no seating for that one. They don't have fireworks. It's just drones and music. So if that sounds more like what your kiddos want, you don't even have to be in the parks for that one. That one is at Disney Springs at the shopping center outside of the parks. So lots of different options, depending on what best fits your particular situation. But like I said, my 5-year-old and 7-year-old, Fantasmic is their favorite.
Yeah. That's a winner, I feel like, for everybody. Yeah. If I had to pick just one, well, while Happily Ever After is still around, that would be my number one because it's Happily Ever After. But Fantasmic's also great.
Yeah, Happily Ever After just stresses me out. Navigating because like I said, my kids want to be able to see the projections every time we go, so it's not like we can find an alternate spot. Really, we pretty much have to be in the hub or in that surrounding area or down Main Street, and it's just very congested.
This is what I can't understand is, especially with how many people are in Magic Kingdom, why aren't they doing projections in Rivers of America like Disneyland? And I know Disneyland, we've also, because even with Fantasmic coming back, there's always been you watch Fantasmic and then you stay there and then you just watch the projections on the water. It's probably because they already have that mechanism for Fantasmic, and but it would be so nice to be able to stand on Rivers of America and still see the fireworks, but also see projections. Please,
right? I would love that because I am also, this is not why my children are that way. This was not my fault, this one, but I am also just a projection person. I don't really care for fireworks are fine, but I would much rather I want to see the characters and the IP and the fun things they do on the castle and down on Main Street on all the shops and stuff like that. But the only place to be able to see that is smack dab in the middle of Main Street. And that I get anxiety even just talking about it. Yeah. So I don't want to deter you from doing that if you really want to, but just crowded. Stage yourself accordingly and kind of find a space where you are maybe on a corner. You'll be able to see the tape lines that they put down and you can kind of, put yourself where you need to go. Or if you've got a lot of anxiety about it and your budget allows, maybe look into a dessert party or something like that, where you have a little bit more space that you're not going to be crammed into the hub or on Main Street. So different options if you decide that Magic Kingdom is what you want to do with your little kiddos. Whether or not you get your money's worth from a dessert party with little kiddos is a whole nother topic that I'm not going to get into right now, but that, there are some other options there.
Yeah, and Anna's saying the projections on Small World at Disneyland too. It's you have 3 different places you can go to watch fireworks where it's not so congested. And I wish that there was more options in Disney World. You can watch it from the backside, but you're not going to see the projections.
Right, exactly.
It's totally different.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to see projections, you have to be able to see the front side of the castle. And even to that point, if you want to be able to completely experience it, you need to take some steps back into Main Street to be able to see what they do now. Which I love that they're doing that on the sides of Main Street. I think that's great. I think it's a fun little addition where they put some little animations on there, but it's just a lot to do the fireworks. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yes. So
I have to
long story short,
to do it.
Yeah. If I had to rate them for preschool and young elementary, I would put Fantasmic first. I would put Magic Kingdom fireworks, whether it's Happily Ever After or a future show, probably just in general Magic Kingdom fireworks. And then I would put Epcot fireworks third, which is currently Luminous at Epcot.
Yeah.
had to think about the name of it for a minute.
Harmonious
I
think Harmonious was better for little kids than this one, but
yes, I think so, because there was more to see and more familiar music.
Right.
There is familiar music in Luminous, but I would say it's geared more towards older kids.
Yeah.
Which Epcot tends to kind of swing to older kids and adults anyway. So that makes sense that Disney did that. But if we're talking little kids, I would put it last. And I wish that the Tree of Life show would be a thing on a regular basis.
Rivers of Light. Like, let's bring back some sort of show in the water there. They have the whole amphitheater.
I know. I'm
shows.
hoping that maybe once they figure out and we hear more about what they're doing in Dino Land, I'm going to go on a mini tangent here for a moment. Then once we get more details about Indiana Jones and Encanto and all of that, then maybe that will be the next thing that comes to Animal Kingdom.
That would be really amazing to bring that IP into a show.
And even if it's just a few nights a week, right? Yeah. Maybe they can't deal having it every single night of the week because of the animals and the hours and the operation and the light for different times of the year. But something, even if you just give it to us maybe on weekends or something, would be nice.
Like, could they do drones for that so that it didn't disturb the animals?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Kite tails at night.
Kite tails. Oh, kite tails. You will forever be in our memories of the crash landing.
Something. So that being said, if you have a future question that you'd like us to answer in our Ask the Moms, we would love to hear from you. Or if you've got an idea for a topic that you think it would be helpful for us to cover, please reach out to us. You can find us on all of our social medias at Mom Street USA. You can find our email, momstreetusa@gmail.com. We are on, where else are we? We have a website that is disneycicerone.com/momstreetusa. So you can find all of our information there as well.
As our newsletter.
Yes, our newsletter. You can find information about Kate's books there. She is a lovely Disney-related author of all things historical and inspirational and fictional. So
I love that. I'm going to put it in my bio.
Only if you give me credit for it.
It's that quote, Jackie.
Yes.
How wishes mama.
So yes, if you have additional information that you are looking for, that you need help finding answers to, please reach out and send that information our way, and we are happy to help.
Yes, always. And Jackie is also not a travel agent, but a travel consultant. So if you need a little bit more help, then maybe we can just do a few answers to some questions. Jackie's available with that. She's also a Genie Plus expert. So like literally a Genie Plus expert. So if you're confused by Genie Plus, she's the lady to go and talk to, because she will have all the answers you need, and also can has a way to maybe help you with whatever you need for Genie Plus. So that being said, are we ready to wrap this thing?
Yes.
A lot of activity information.
Oh my goodness. Let's briefly just mention what's coming up on our next podcast episode.
Yes.
Our next episode will be our last in our Disney Cruise Line episode. But it'll be a good one, because we are talking Disney cruise tips and hacks. So we're going to go back over everything that we haven't touched on yet to give you the best information that we can from Kate. And Kate has pooled her sources to give us some good hack information, and maybe some things that you might not be able to find on Google that you can only learn from going on the trip. So that's what we're bringing to you on our next episode.
Yeah, it'll be really fun for even those who have cruised often. There might be some new things to learn in this particular episode, so I'm excited for that one. But
it'll be good.
Shall we wrap this episode up?
I think we shall.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us for this episode of Mom Street USA. We hope that you learned way more than you maybe even needed about shore excursions and all the activities on the ships for Disney Cruise Line. But we also hope that it was really helpful for you if you are planning a Disney cruise or thinking about going on one at some point. Jackie, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
Oh, that was fun to just kind of rattle off all those different options. So many options on the boat, off the boat. Just too many to even consider, I feel like.
And I feel like there's a life lesson here that you should always make time for tea with kangaroos. Right?
Maybe that's a new shirt.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us. We appreciate you guys and our Mom Street community so very much. And we will see you next time on Mom Street USA.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.